Hello, hello, JP. How we doing?
Great, Mickey. How are you?
I'm very good. Welcome everybody to another episode of Midlife Muscle and Strength Podcast, where we try to help you be better, not broken. I'm just untangling myself. I've got my wires here trying to take me out like an anaconda. Um, so today we got a fun topic for you parents out there, all about fitness, family, and what's the correlation between parents working out, kids working out, and how those two things are related, and why we as parents really set the bar, set the standard for the direction our kids are going to go in terms of their fitness and just being active in life in general, I guess is a simple way to put it. So you had this nugget came to you, so I'm going to let you kind of steer it a little bit. But so what's the premise here of what you were thinking about for this conversation today?
I was thinking about training kids, just like you have. How many soccer games today?
I have two. I'm coaching two teams today on Saturday morning, under U6 and U8. So we're gonna have a busy day.
I was thinking about training kids, and I was, how do you get kids to work out and be healthy? And I think it's a direct correlation to what are the parents doing. So, like, you should, if your kids are working out, like, it should be backwards. Like, if you want your kids to work out, you should work out. And I think a lot of people give their time so much to the kids, or I don't have time in my schedule. It's like it can be a great example, and I think working out with your kids is the best, but also just doing your own thing and like, hey, I'm going to go to the gym, and eventually at some point they can come with you, or whatever it might be. But like just showing that discipline and like time you're giving to yourself. I think a lot of early parents don't, they're like, oh, that's a being selfish. But I think in the long run, it's like you're showing a great example for your kids and like giving them the blueprint of like, I think there's like physical health that we talk about, mental health, spiritual health, like all those things. I think, you need to show your kids how to achieve those early in life. And then, it helps you as a person, and then it will help your kids as well. Um,
Yeah, I think that's well said. First off, and I think it's they're going to emulate you, right? Your kids are going to emulate what you do, and it's monkey see, monkey do. It's the most cliche thing in the world, but if you have kids, you probably see it every day. Like they use the words that you use. So if you slip up and you drop a four-letter word, your kid's going to repeat that, right? So if they see you doing things like eating healthy, taking care of yourself, getting good sleep, working out, they're going to emulate that and understand that that's like a pillar of the way you live your life. If that's absent completely and they don't ever see that during their developmental years, it's going to be really hard to instill that in them later in life, because those habits weren't formed, and those synapses weren't connected, and all that stuff didn't set in early. And we know that the brain as of a kid, and body obviously, is super malleable at a young age. And as you get older, as we get older, it's harder and harder to put those things, drop those things in, and make those good habits, and make those connections in your brain. So really important as a parent to set that example. It's not easy, but it's important, I think.
yeah, and I think like if you didn't do it early, and maybe because older, I think you can still, you know, get into that routine and change. Um, but yeah, I think as parents, like you said, like I think sometimes you only focus on the negative. You're like, oh, I said that bad word, my kid like mimicked me, but they also follow your good habits too.
Hmm.
So like I think like it's important to know have both those, and set a good example. And I think we can attest to like our parents, um, you know, firsthand experience. Like, how did your parents influence your fitness? And obviously, I think sometimes people see really in shape kids, or really motivated kids, and they're like the parent is pushing them to do this.
Hmm.
And maybe
Yeah.
like speak to like how your parents like influenced you a little bit on your like fitness journey.
Yeah. So I'm going to rewind a little bit. Actually, I guess it would be fast forward, because I see it now with my kids. Just like a few examples that I've noticed is like, I don't always bring my kids into the garage to work out with me, but when they're awake, or if I have to work out, when they're awake and they're not napping, or they're not busy, and they're around, like they're seeing me do my thing, and I don't say, hey, get over here, do these box jumps, or get over here, do a kettlebell swing. Like they just see what I'm doing and they want to do it. And they'll come over and try it out for like 2 seconds. And then they'll go back and play with their dolls and then like run away. They're not like glued to me while I'm doing my workout, but just being in the proximity and seeing it and watching me do that. And sometimes saying like, Dad, why are you doing that? What is that? And me just briefly explaining like, oh, this is a push up and this is how you do a push up. And then, it might be 3 days later. I'll be in the living room, and it could be like downtime after tubs are done, and they have their pajamas on, and we're watching Sesame Street or something. I'll look over and they're like, Dad, watch this, and they're doing push-ups. They're like trying to show me how they do a push-up. So those like little things, I just want to emphasize, I'm not out there like I take my kids to the track with me sometimes when I do my track workouts for my plyometrics and sprints. I don't come and say like, hey, get over here and like you got to do my drills with me. My daughter, my middle daughter, oldest, or even my youngest, the baby who's 1.5 at this point, just starting to walk, she'll follow me and they'll follow me to try to do what I'm doing. And I'm not making them. They just want to do what their parents are doing. And I think them seeing that, like, oh, my dad's exercising and doing these different things, it just becomes innate and a part of what they think is normal. And I think normalizing it is the most important thing. Like, oh, this is normal. It's not unique or strange to be doing fitness, which I think in today's society sometimes there's this bad connotation that's like, oh, you're weird because you work out regularly, or you're weird because you eat well most of the time and you have like a clean diet. It's like that should be the norm, not the other way around. And having kids realize that's normal, I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I have my daughter come out with me and she'll play like just in front of the garage. And then like she just watches me. And like sometimes she'll come over and like, hey, let's do this exercise or whatever. Like I never make her do anything. But yeah, it's just funny that like even just having them close and watching you like is, great. She'll maybe start out doing some exercises, hang on the rings. Just like kids her age, like under 5, should just play. And then the play might only be 2 minutes, and then they're off doing their own thing,
Yeah, like short attention span.
Yeah, yeah. So,
so I just wanted to make that connection between us two before I jump into my parents, and it's actually honestly different for me and my kids because my parents were always supportive of exercise and sports, but I didn't see my parents work out per se or like train a ton when I was a kid. My dad was a big like runner. Like he would run a lot. He was sort of that generation where like everybody was runner. They were all joggers. He played sports as a kid. Like he did football, baseball, basketball, all that stuff growing up. But I guess the best way I could put it is he and my mom just sort of fostered an environment where they encouraged us to be active, and they set up situations where we weren't going to be in front of a TV. We weren't going to be playing video games. We had access to sports, and they encouraged us to play sports and take on different challenges and things that we hadn't done before. And I think that alone, just making it accessible to us and making sure that we were in a place where being active was a good thing, and being outside and using your body was encouraged, and it was a part of what you should do as a kid. That helped a lot. They weren't necessarily in there like, all right, let's go work out. I never saw my dad touch a barbell my whole life, but like I did see him run a lot, and he coached a lot of my teams as a kid, right? So he was there supporting like the physical activity stuff we did. My mom, God love her, and I didn't see her exercise ever like intently, like go and do a workout until I was in my 30s, later in life. But they were always just there supporting me and my siblings being active, and making sure that we had space to do that, time to do that. And then at times they would say like, hey, turn off the TV, go outside, like get out of here. You're not going to sit and watch cartoons. It's nice out. Just go. I don't want to see you for 2 hours. Just go outside and like be out there. So I think like the main thing for me to start it out is just like creating an environment where activity and sports are encouraged and supported. And you don't get to like, you're too busy or overscheduled doing other stuff. Right. So just being active and being encouraged to be active by your parents is, like kind of number one thing that my parents did off the top.
Yeah, I love the get outside.
Yeah.
My parents were like, we spent a ton of time outside, and they also, it wasn't just go outside and do nothing. Like they gave, like we had a basketball hoop, we had like anything. Like every Christmas was always like. I remember one year I got a pogo stick and a unicycle. I was
Oh,
like, my
we're gonna
parents,
have you join the circus,
yeah,
JP.
like oh, going to join the circus, but like they just needed me to like burn energy outside. So like we had like a bunch of like fun things to do outside. Um, we definitely had limited TV time, and like be outside. And like I know you live in a neighborhood, I live in a neighborhood. Like less and less kids are outside, like independently. Like they're outside with like their parents or whatever it is, but like all the kids just like hang out outside and like run around.
Hmm.
For better for worse, like my 3-year-old runs outside. Like we just let her outside anytime she wants. It's like, hey, I
Yeah.
want to go out. It's like, okay, great.
Get out there.
Yeah. So just like getting stuff that they can play with and enjoy and be outside. I think like a lot of kids get stuck on. I think I think like cartoons and everything is not to go down another rabbit hole, but like they're way more entertaining now.
Hmm.
Tailored to kids, where like you could easily like separate yourself from a old school cartoon. Where like nowadays it's like it feels like they wrap you in a little bit more.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
it
Well,
is a little
today,
bit,
yeah, today there's like you can just turn it on anytime. Remember, there was only a window of time where you
yeah,
could watch TV that there was
yeah.
something on you wanted to see, and then
And
it was
then
over.
you just like, okay, well, I have nothing else to do, so I got to go outside. But yeah, I think being outside, just like fostering that as parents is like huge. And
Did you have a
you know,
trampoline as a
no
kid growing up?
no trampoline.
So,
What about you?
like, you just got me thinking about stuff like, so we had a trampoline as a kid growing up, like one of the big circle ones. So we were always on that. Um, my parents got divorced when I was in sixth grade. So my dad, kind of stayed in our like childhood house, and then my mom lived not far away. So we were in the same school district when we were splitting time. But I remember once my mom, took her own place and my dad stayed in the house, the house kind of became more of like a frat house type of a place, which kind of like put the being active in sports thing like on steroids, so to speak, because at that point we had, my mom was always cool with this stuff too. Like we had a Nerf basketball hoop from when I was like 5 years old in the kitchen on this closet door, and we had a big open kitchen with a lot of space. So we had like a basketball court basically in the kitchen. My dad ended up putting a universal cable weight machine in the dining room. So like when I was like 12 or 13, and yeah, he would use that from time to time. But I remember as a teenager starting to use that and lift weights. Um, we would make up games that we would play inside when it got too cold and kind of nasty outside during the winter months because we were up in upstate New York. And my dad, never stopped us. If we were playing and being active, he was cool with it. So if there's a Nerf ball flying around in the living room, there wasn't much to break. We didn't have a house built like a museum with all kinds of fancy stuff. So he was totally fine with it. And that's kind of what I meant by like supporting and fostering a place where activity and playing was supported and not just being sedentary and sitting around. Like I remember my friends coming over when I was like 10, 11, 12, and they'd be like, oh, you guys just play basketball in the kitchen like this? I was like, yeah, because we're like dunking and like
Yeah,
jumping over each other, and like you're right next to the fridge. It's like, so that was the environment I grew up in. That was the norm. It wasn't, that was every day. So that's like what I mean by supporting us being active, not just making us go play a certain sport or whatever.
yeah. I think that's a great. I didn't even think about that point, like going into this conversation, but like, yeah, like we had a 2-car garage. It was a little bit bigger, but we'd like rollerblade in it like all winter, like play hockey, like
Yeah.
have hockey nets, and like above our garage we have like kind of the room with like the basketball hoop on there. Me and my brother would play basketball all the time, and yeah, I think like just like having other things, entertaining things to do that are physical, um, is a great way to like just encourage that with your kids. I think that's a big difference between getting an iPad and getting a trampoline.
Oh gosh,
It's
that.
like you
Yeah.
could jump and burn energy off, and kind of get that going, and then I think having those um, physical things to do as kids, and then also seeing your parents do physical things, I think like is a great. That's like kind of your exercise is like go jump at the trampoline or like go have fun with that. Where your
Hmm.
parents might be going for a run. Like it's like so essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
At that age.
Um, and do you find like today for you, like when you're trying to encourage, I mean, obviously your kids are active, just, because I've seen them and I've heard you talk about them, but do you try to put your kids in sports? Like, is that something you've started to do at a young age? Or you're kind of still like, they're just in the playing phase. They don't need to play sports. And do you see yourself as you go down 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, like signing up your kids for sports, or are you going to let them pick the kind of sports they want to play? Or what's the route you think you might take, just to give
My
parents
daughter's
an idea?
3, so we are doing gymnastics 1 day a week.
Hmm.
So just like go have fun, do gymnastics. Um, she's done like a 2 mile hike before, just on like we go
Yeah.
for a hike in the woods, and she does that, and just because we like walk around a lot in the woods.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think that's all she's doing now. I think we'll eventually transition to something, but it's not like really forced, or it's as much as she likes it.
Hmm.
My wife was like a high level gymnast, so she like was doing like 4 or 5 days a week at her age at
Holy
3.
cow, that's crazy.
Like, and we're not encouraging that, but I think like just like physical movement, trying new things, being in an environment like that, I think is always good for at a young age.
Hmm.
But we'll see where the sports go. It's like whatever she shows interest in. But I'd rather have my kid do all sports, like
Yeah.
1 day a week of a bunch of sports.
Don't
Than
specialize at 5 years old in something.
yeah. And I think if you were going to specialize, I don't think gymnastics is the worst one to specialize in, just because it's like it's a foundation for a lot of things. But like we're going to try horseback riding, jujitsu, um, fishing. I don't know, like a bunch of
Yeah.
different things. Like
Yeah.
just expose your kids to as much as you can.
Yeah.
So
So my kids are a little bit older. I have a 6 year old and a 4 year old, and then I obviously have the 1.5 year old, the little one. And they've tried so far dance, gymnastics, and soccer. And they do swimming as well. Like they just do some swim lessons, which we've sprinkled in throughout the year, like in the colder months, because we have a pool at home, so we kind of swim with them then. But and some things have stuck, like soccer, they seem to like, and they keep coming back to it. Uh, Dance wasn't a big hit. For those dance families out there, kudos to you. Wasn't their vibe. And then gymnastics, the older one is the 6 year old is doing it now once a week. The middle child, they're always the tough ones, the crazy ones. She is not a big fan of structured things very much. So she did a little bit of gymnastics, but she would rather just be in that gymnastics room and like just run wild. I think the structure for her was a little bit harder to like stick with. So we'll probably come back to that and let her try it again. But just like you said, we're essentially letting them stay with what interests them and not forcing them into any one category. But just in the first 6 years, they've tried like 3 different things, 4 different things, and it's been cool to see them try to learn and work out the issues with their body of like, oh, how do I do gymnastics, or how do I dance, or how do I swim? Because when they start out, you're like, oh my gosh, this is brutal. Like they can't swim at all. And then they progress so much. So it's cool to see how they grow in that way in different things. But I agree with you. They can try lots of different stuff, but I am almost, I don't want to say never. Using the word never is not good, but I don't want to see them specialize really till much later, if they do even decide to specialize in anything. So, but that's kind of been our approach too, is just try stuff, and then go from there. But thinking about my parents, I didn't do any sport, period, like organized till I was like 6.
really,
Like I don't know if it was the same for you, but back when we were kids, they used to do, there was no
yeah,
organized anything for like kids who were 3 or 4.
yeah. I don't think I think that's a big market now, but I think back in the day it was just like you had to wait till like 8, 7, 8. Like
Hmm.
till a youth sport came up. A
Yeah.
town,
Which is
like
even more important why
a town
you
league.
needed to like play, right? Because
Yeah,
there was no, so like if I wasn't playing on my own, like there wasn't something for me to do. I didn't have soccer practice at 4 years old. And like I would have just been doing no sports. I wouldn't have been doing any activity that way.
yeah. I think that's like, and then my parents like allowed me to try anything I wanted. It was never
Hmm.
like if we did start a season, I had to finish it.
Yeah.
So
We
like
had that rule too.
just that commitment. But yeah, like it was no like, oh, we're not doing this. I don't think like there were some sports that like maybe I wasn't even aware of as a kid. Like no one in my family played hockey. Like we
Hmm.
just, I don't think my parents were encouraging it though, because they don't want to like maybe wake up that early and do that. But like we were doing other physical things. It wasn't like, they're like, why don't you play basketball instead of going and play hockey?
It's just like nudging you, like, yeah, maybe
Yeah.
we'll try something.
Yeah. But yeah, like we had access to like, any sport we wanted to play.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like, I don't know, forcing your kid, but like having your kid just try things. Hey, go try this, or, I think little clinics are great for kids. Just maybe it's only like a 2-day a week for next 4 weeks or whatever it is. Like, go try that. It doesn't have to be like this whole like long season,
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like, those are great things to see your kids do,
Yeah, and I think I like the idea that you said, like, not forcing, but as parents in some situations, I don't want to say you're forcing, but it's your job to put your kids in situations where they can, like, a 5-year-old's not going to go on their own and say, I want to try soccer. You have to put them in the situation. Now, that's not really forcing them. That's just you're putting them in a situation where then they can try something new. If they don't like it, you can then remove them after the season's over or whatever. Because I think sometimes parents are like, well, they don't even talk about soccer or baseball or sports. Well, they don't know what it is. How can they talk about it? Like, how can they even know what sports are out there? It is your job to give them the menu and give them the opportunity. And then from there, you can let them find their interests in certain areas and then go from there. But for when I was a kid, I do remember specifically going back to like our parents encouraging us and how it kind of shaped us. I do remember my dad. So where I grew up was like small town, little dirt roads and stuff. We only had like soccer and baseball. There was no football, no lacrosse, no hockey. Like, we were bare minimum in terms of sports, like lowest barrier of entry sports. Like, soccer is shin guards and cleats and a ball. Baseball was like a glove. Like, that's all you needed. So those were the sports they offered. And my dad had never played soccer his whole life. He played football, baseball, basketball. He was like a good old American, kid growing up. That was what he played. So he got us into soccer, and he had no idea what he was doing, but he started to coach me at a young age. And now that I look back, and I'm coaching U6 and U8, like, my dad coached me at this same age, and he knew nothing about soccer. and then I'm coaching, and I know a lot about soccer, and it's hard for me to coach kids at this age. I'm like, that must have been such a huge undertaking for him, like mentally, to be like, what am I doing with these kids?
Yeah.
And my mom was always right there. She was my biggest cheerleader from when I was 6 till she would still come to a game now. If I said, hey mom, come to an old man soccer game, she'd come and watch one. So she was always super supportive of it. But I just remember my dad coaching me till I was 12 or 13, and he had no experience in soccer, yet he sort of took that on and just like bit the bullet and learned about it and learned the game enough to be able to run practices and stuff. But that was a huge deal because no one where I grew up knew anything about soccer, because it was the late 80s, early 90s. And like, most of those people who had the same childhood as my dad. Soccer wasn't big, right? In America. So it's really funny that that's the way it worked out. Baseball was a different story because he knew baseball really well, and I played that a little bit too. But when soccer became like my sport, looking back, it's like very unlikely that that would have happened the way that my dad grew up and how I ended up being a big soccer player.
Yeah. I kind of grew up with, at a young age, like, school was tough for me. I was very frustrated. So my mom, like, actually my mom's an unbelievable athlete. Like, she has some school records
Oh,
for like the
nice.
mile, and she was a great swimmer, and she was like all American in a bunch of sports in high school. So it was pretty impressive. My dad's just like a workhorse, like, just like
Charlie
hard work.
hustle, just moving, just
like
working.
my mom's a natural athlete. My dad, like, is just like an animal. Um, so like after school, my mom would just be like, go for a run. And it was so nice. Like, it was like a mailbox that was like half a mile away. She's like, go run to the mailbox and back. And just like encouraged me to just like burn off some energy, like just being upset at school. And it was just so nice. Like, my parents like gave me a lot of, like, we talk about parents, like, independence. And this might be back in the day when it was maybe a little safer. I don't even know if it is or isn't now. But like, I just run. Like, I was at a young age, and she's like, go for a run. And then like my dad would be like, you can go bike to the next city. Like, they just were like, you can go anywhere you want, like, be safe and fine. And so like, I felt like I had a lot of, like, it was working out was like, oh, I can go places and do things and ride my bike or go for a run places. And like, no one's looking over my shoulder, or like, I can just like go be me and burn some energy off, you know? Um,
Yeah. Did you learn to ride your bike at an early age?
yeah, like two.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
I think I was
no training wheels at two. I think that was like
they just put you on top of a hill. They're like, all right,
yeah, it's like
JP,
send it.
sink or swim, brother. Let's
That's
go.
it.
I think I
Yeah,
was like 3 or 4. I have noticed today that kids don't learn to ride bikes as early. Feel like as we did.
yeah.
We're actually working on it with my two. It's like we're not trying to force kids to do stuff, but I think for us, at least when we were kids, riding your bike was like independence. Once you could ride your bike, you could go off and do stuff. I don't think it's as common today for kids to just go ride off on their bike in their neighborhood, sort of out of sight of parents. But yeah, that bike was freedom, baby. Once I could ride my bike, I was
Seven.
like, see you later. I'm out of here.
Yeah,
um,
that was like, hey, end of the street, and then hey, you can go to the next neighborhood, and it was just kind of like it was a great way to kind of get moving and get out of the regular stuff. But like, yeah, my parents were like another reason my parents encouraged me just to move is just like, hey, go anywhere you want.
yeah. And like that gets into sort of like the other side of this too, that I think it was a gift my parents gave me that is underrated when it comes to physical activity and sports is I learned so many life lessons growing up through sports,
Mm.
and my parents really supported and fostered that and made it I think they realized it too. They're like, oh, this is a good like vector for you to like learn about hard work, learn about responsibility, learn about sportsmanship and how to take a loss, and overcoming adversity. Because nothing comes easy to kids, right? You have athletic genes, and you can jump high, run fast, and stuff. But learning the skill of a sport is really hard and difficult, and learning how to ride a bike is difficult. All that stuff I think teaches you grit, and also just like creates connections in your brain with body, mind, and how to like solve problems and stuff like that with your body in space. So I think that's another aspect too that is underrated, because you might have someone be like, oh, my kid's not going to be a jock, like they're going to be Harvard track, or they're going to take they're going to do violin lessons, and they're going to do Russian math and like all these academic things. But I think the active stuff is just as important, especially at a really young age, and it feeds into the academic stuff. If you want your kids to be good in school, just like your mom knew, like, hey, school wasn't your thing, but you got to use your body and your brain somehow. So we got to move your body. Like you got to go run, you got to go ride your bike, because otherwise you're going to go nuts. Right. So I think the combination of those two things is really important. The benefit of kids playing and using their bodies and be physically active is going to help them actually in school and help them regulate themselves when there's conflict, right? If you get comfortable, like, oh, I lost this game, and like I can like handle the loss of a soccer game at 7 years old, you'll be able to better avoid getting into a physical altercation at lunch if a kid takes your seat. Like those things, I think people miss those connections sometimes. And some of my best life lessons were through sports. Up through my teenage and like 20s, I learned a lot of great life lessons through sports.
Yeah, I think there's a huge value add with playing sports and just like in general doing hard things. But I think like as a young kid, doing physically hard things is like, it teaches you like, okay, you did something physically hard, you survived it, got better, improved on it, learned those life lessons through sports. I remember like, I think I was like 6, maybe younger. My dad like making me push the wheelbarrow like with like all the stuff like up this, like we had this like the mulch pile at the top of this hill. So like it was like a 30-40 feet, like it wasn't like straight up, but it was like this hill I had to push up, and I remember like how hard it was, but like I just did that and like just kept doing it, and every year it got easier. But it was like I remember crying the first time I did it. I was like, I can't do it. Like the wheelbarrow dumps over.
Dumps over.
Like my dad's yelling at me, like, what's wrong with like like
Yeah.
like this is like grueling yard work. And like I but like till this day I love doing hard legs. Like it just like maybe
Yeah.
at that age, like that kind of taught me like, hey, I don't mind this pain, or this isn't like something to fear, and like you can kind of lean into it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, like all that stuff is like yeah, man.
I can remember my dad. One time I was maybe 9 or 10, and I was kind of getting into baseball because I was pretty good at baseball and soccer. And so I was getting into baseball a little bit, and I played shortstop, and my dad took me to this field, and we were just practicing, and he started hitting grounders to me, and he started hitting them like really hard to me because I was making a sort of like technical mistake. I wasn't turning my glove the right way or something like that. And I just distinctly remember him like firing balls at me. And it wasn't like sadistic, crazy stuff like that where he's trying to hurt me, but he was just trying to show me that it's hard and that I'm just going to have to keep doing it over and over if I want to get better at it. And I had to do it the right way if I wanted to do it right and like be better and more efficient. And one of the times he hit a ball and it hit me in the thumb and it broke my thumbnail and I was bleeding a little bit. And I like started to cry. And my dad's like, you want to stop? And I remember it, like, I very distinctly remember it was like a turning point. And I was like, no, like, I want to keep going.
Yeah.
And like that moment, like, I think now, like, what would I do? Like, if my kid hurt their thumb and like, would I just make them stop? Because he didn't make me, he could have been like, oh no, we got to cover this up and go. He's like, do you want to stop? And I was just like, no, I don't. And I just like, I remember like my thumb was bleeding and I'm like catching the ball still and my thumb's bleeding in my glove. And so it's just like those little things that you remember, the wheelbarrow for you, the bloody thumb, grounders. Like our parents, someone might be like, oh, your parents were being cruel. Like I look back, I'm like thankful that my dad did that because he gave me an opportunity to like look at adversity and something hard and then make a choice. Like, you going to push through it or are you going to quit on it? He didn't make me do it. Like I chose to do it and I made the right choice, quote unquote. But like, I just remember that it's almost 30 years ago. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you have those turning points of like, hey, I got to keep going, keep pushing. Yeah, I think my dad, like, yeah.
Like those opportunities I think giving kids those opportunities is just so important. I don't want to be the crotchety old man, but I just think today there's a little bit too much of people trying to protect their kids from situations like that and not wanting their kids to go through hard things. And there's so many studies, like I don't even, you could go and Google 1,000 studies right now that show kids need to do hard things, both mentally and physically. And like the easiest, lowest entry, barrier to entry is having your kids do physically difficult things and try stuff that's hard, and then struggle with it and let them struggle with it, because that's the only way they're going to grow. If everything's always easy to them and it doesn't get hard till later in life, it's going to be a slap in the face if they're 21 and graduating from college and that's the first time that anything's hard for them and they go into the real world.
Yeah.
So I just think giving those opportunities is just so important.
I love that. Yeah. I think like, do hard things and, face that adversity and face it early in life and learn how to go through it. And, your parents are there to like help support you. And, if you said, I don't want to continue, like that would have been fine for your dad too. Like he probably would have been like, no problem. Like,
yeah.
But then like maybe like later on, like there's another hard thing to do or a hard choice, but yeah,
I mean, you've probably had it with your own kids, right? Like I can't do like the statement sometimes I hear my kids say is like, I can't do it. And then right there as a parent, like have a choice to say like, okay, you can't do it. Or like, I think you can do it. I think you should keep trying. I don't say like, you have to keep trying, like get back. But like, I don't know if you can see, like I have the rock wall behind me and like, I could literally, like I built that so my kids can use it right there.
Yep.
Like I can climb up it and touch the ceiling in like one step, but for like a 4-year-old, it's like the tallest thing ever.
Yeah.
And I've had my kids get like halfway up so many times and be like, I can't go the rest of the way, Dad. And I'm just like, I think you can. I'll just stand here and catch you if you're gonna fall. And then they go and then they touch it. And then the best part, me as a parent, is like, I did it. Like they're so excited and happy like about that accomplishment. Because I easily could have come over and just like scooped them up off the wall halfway up. Right. All right, I got you. But I think it's just like making the choice to like give them the little nudge and then let them choose. You're going to push yourself and try to do this thing. They might not do it that time, but they might do it the next time or the next time. Because if you always just scoop them up and save them, they're never going to do it.
It could be as easy as putting your shoes on. It's like, I can't put my shoes on. It's like, well, let's try a few different ways. And like, I'll be like, hey, let's try this way, or let's try like a different way, or this is how I would do it. And then like, let them do it a few more times until like, obviously if she's like, can't do it, then like, I'd help her. It's not like I'm gonna be like, well, we're not gonna wear shoes.
You're going barefoot in the snow.
Yeah. But it's like she always figures it out. And it's like, but you have to give your kid time to struggle. I think like parents, it's hard as a parent to sit there and watch a kid struggle. But I think like the more time they're in it, I think that's when they need to like, obviously not leaving your kid like just crying for 5-10 minutes, but it's
Hmm.
like, hey, like let's a couple more attempts, or let's try a different way, or like, show them that they're, you know, hey, like there's you can do this on your own. I think that's like made my daughter like very independent.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I never coached a CrossFit class per se, but it's probably a lot like in CrossFit where someone can't get a muscle up, and they're like, "I can't do it," and then you as a coach would come in and give them, all right, here's a scaled version. Like, so you let them struggle a little bit, but then you sort of like give them the tools. You're like, okay, like you can't get the muscle up, but we can do a scaled version, and then we'll work our way up from that. Like if your kid can't tie their shoe, you do the first part and then show them the bunny ears and then they finish that part. So it's there's a lot of similarities between learning things like that and struggling with things at any age, and how the challenge leads to growth, and then when you get over that hump you're like, oh, and then it clicks when you tie your shoes the first time, like, oh my gosh, this is so easy. When you get your first muscle up, you're like, oh my god, like what, that was it. It's like, but that road there is really important, like going down that road of adversity and learning.
Yeah, they say the best, like the sweet spot is like 5% more than you can't do. So I think a lot of people think it's like 50% more than they can't do. Like if you take the muscle up example and you don't have, whatever they say, like 5 pull-ups and 5 dips, like if you don't have that, like it's too far away to just think you can hang in the rings and do a muscle
Yeah.
up. So like, but if you do have those and it's a technique thing and it's like you're 5% away from the learning aspect, then you could get it.
Hmm.
But like I think for kids, like I'm not asking my daughter to like, do a handstand push up, but like, if she can do, hey, let's try a push up, or like something that's easily attainable for her, or like not easily attainable, but it's like a little bit outside her comfort zone. Like that's like the perfect spot for
Just a
kids.
stretch, it's a little stretch,
Yeah,
maybe
but I
just
think like
keep.
sometimes people like comfort zone. You should be in the uncomfort zone longer, and it's like I think some people get it wrong by like having a kid do something that's like unattainable. It's like
Yeah.
your soccer. It's like you teaching soccer this morning. You're like, okay, we're gonna run this play, and it's like they're not even at like you got to bring it to like, hey, let's try to like hit this cone with the ball, like
Yeah. Yeah.
so like you got to bring it to more like a realistic. And I think if you can always push them a little bit past, okay, we're gonna, instead of a 5 yard pass, we're gonna do a 7 yard pass, and it's like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, like that pushed them a little bit outside of it. I think that's where the growth happens, and then over time, just like working out, adding 2.5 pound weights each week, like over a period of a year, you're going to be a lot stronger and a lot more capable.
Hmm.
But I think like my parents might have got it wrong. Like they
Yeah.
always tried to push me to do like 25% more than I was doing, or like that big jump, wanting to see the
Yeah.
big improvements. And I think as parents, it's just like little steps along the way,
Hmm.
pushing your kids a little bit farther than it's something that they can do, but they might not know they can do. And it's like the rock wall is perfect. It's like you got up halfway. I know you can get the rest of the way. It's
Hmm.
not like they can't get on the wall at all, and you're telling them to get to the top.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm not having my 1-year-old climb the wall yet.
Yeah, yeah. You're
Soon
like,
though, by 2 years old.
you can't get up there.
Yeah.
Um,
But
yeah,
I think, the moral of the story after this conversation, because we've been bouncing around between like our parents and us as parents, like, first of all, let's not sugarcoat it. Being a parent's hard. Like, it is not easy. It's like the best and hardest job on earth to be a parent and raise kids. And we're not trying to say it's easy at all by any means, but I think it is important. It is the most important job out there, raising kids and doing it as best as you can. And I feel like we're good examples of, like, we were raised in active households and had physical activity and sports as a cornerstone of our lives, and it only made our lives better. I think sometimes people are like, oh, your kid's going to be a jock, or we're not going to be jock heads, we're going to be academics or whatever. And I think that could be one cornerstone, like academics, but also physical activity and sports could be another, right? And then like arts and other things. You could have a lot of different pillars in life, but I think the physical activity thing is just so powerful and so useful. And I'm grateful to my parents for fostering an environment where it was encouraged and supported, because I don't even know where I'd be in life if I didn't learn the lessons, both physically and mentally, that I did through sports and exercise as I grew up. Like I'm like, oh gosh, that's a terrible thought of like a different future.
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's very well said about like, being parents is hard, and, giving a kid the gift of kind of, physical activity. I think it's important to kind of set in at a young age or at some age. I think if you're haven't done anything physical or hard and you get to 20, it's difficult to, handle life and stress and all this other stuff. So, like you said in the beginning of the conversation, it's not normal, and
Hmm.
it's becoming much less normal. So I think it's like important to, I think parents always like, I want my kid to be healthy and move and, be an athlete. It's like, well, you have to be the example for them. Can't It's just not going to just happen out of thin air, of them watching like, documentaries until they're like, inspired. It's like the person right in front of them is the person they want to idolize. So just, taking your own health to the next level, I think would help your kids as well. So it's not just about you; it's an investment into your family. So,
Yeah. So if people want to get themselves on track and be fit, where can they find you, JP, if they need a coach?
JP Wiz on Instagram.
And you can find me at the Dad Bod Chronicles on Instagram as well. Thanks for listening, everybody, and get out there, be active.